follow day one of confirmation hearings. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. Did anyone cover this for real? Over the last several, the Trump appointees was wall-to-wall, roadblock coverage, long form, every minute. The horns played, hours of hearings, lots of golf voices from anchors. There's a second. Today it was, they gabbled it and everybody bailed. Of course, the good stuff comes tomorrow. Today, again, was a day of listening to Republican senators on the panel vowing, as I read from Greg Store's piece, to scrutinize Judge Brown's approach toward the Constitution. She spoke last today.
If I am confirmed, I commit to you that I will work productively to support and defend the Constitution and this grand experiment of American democracy that has endured over these past 246 years.
Now, a lot of questions, as I just mentioned, about judicial philosophy. We heard this before anyone got in the room today. Republicans suggesting that, well, she didn't have one. And so Judge Jackson did get into some broad language, at least around the way in which she might rule.
I have been a judge for nearly a decade now, and I take that responsibility and my duty to be independent very seriously. I decide cases from a neutral posture. I evaluate the facts, and I interpret and apply the law to the facts of the case before me without fear or favor, consistent with my judicial oath.
So take that for what it is. After we did hear from a number of members of the panel, including Senator Lindsey Graham, former chair of the Judiciary Committee, that it is a problem if you don't have a judicial philosophy. Of course, Lindsey Graham had a lot of problems today.
If you're Hispanic or African-American conservative, it's about your philosophy. Now it's going to be about the historic nature of the pick. Now it's going to be about your philosophy. The bottom line here is when it is about philosophy, when there's somebody of color on our side, it's about we're all racist if we ask hard questions. It's not going to fly with us. We're used to it by now, at least I am. So it's not going to matter a bit to any of us. We're going to ask you what we think you need to be asked. And Senator Hawley, you need to ask her about her record as a district court judge. You should. I hope you do.
Well, but Josh Hawley, he did. Was very concerned about her record on child pornography cases, as telegraphed ahead of today's hearing.
What concerns me, and I've been very candid about this, is that in every case, in each of these 7, Judge Jackson handed down a lenient sentence that was below what the federal guidelines recommended and below what prosecutors requested. And so I think there's a lot to talk about there, and I look forward to talking about it.
That's going to start tomorrow with the questions. They each get 50 minutes each questioning. It'll go into Wednesday. Just imagine what June Grasso was thinking as all this took place. Bloomberg law host June Grasso joins us now.
I was thinking, could they take 40 minutes away from Josh Hawley?
Well, okay, so you're not a fan, but we did give us a bit of a roadmap today, June, for what's coming, right?
Right, and I have to say that when Judge Jackson was nominated, I believe I said, well, these hearings are going to be a little bit dull because she has this long record, and certainly when she was up for the D.C. Circuit, they didn't touch any of these topics. Nothing was mentioned about child pornographers or anything like that. But I think I was wrong. I hope you don't hold that against me.
No.
But it looks like the Republicans are going to try to paint her with a broad brush, that she's soft on crime. I mean, today they were talking about, I think it was Senator Cotton who was talking about the Biden administration being soft on crime. And, this is going to be something that we hear, I think, over and over again as the Republicans ask her questions.
Interesting to hear from many Republican members, what this hearing would not be. And if, by the way, I could play you what the Democratic members said, but I think you can imagine it was about her wonderful resume and how well qualified she was for the job. Ted Cruz expressing probably better than any Republican member of the panel how angry the party still is about Brett Kavanaugh. Listen.
No one is going to inquire into your teenage dating habits. No one is going to ask you with mock severity, do you like beer? But that's not to say this hearing should be non-substantive and non-vigorous. In this hearing, this committee has a responsibility to focus on issues, to focus on your record, to focus on substance, to do our very best to ascertain what kind of justice you would be.
I had to bring everybody back, by the way, because not everyone maybe not everyone remembers the beer thing. Just bear with me, humor me, June Grasso. This brings us back to 2018 Brett Kavanaugh.
Dr. Ford has described you as being intoxicated at a party. Did you consume alcohol during your high school years?
Yes, we drank beer. My friends and I, the boys and girls. Yes, we drank beer. I liked beer. I still like beer.
And they're still remembering that, June.
I know, they totally forgot about the confirmation hearings that came in between, which was Amy Coney Barrett. And I think those were very sort of serene,
more above board
hearings.
Yeah.
Yes. So why all of a sudden are they back to Kavanaugh is my question.
Well,
and they showed what could be done with Amy Coney Barrett, and Judge Ketanji Jackson deserves the same treatment.
So give us a sense, June, what the business at hand, what are we going to hear about Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's record tomorrow?
Well, I think that, from the Democrats, as you say, you're going to hear about her 10 years as a district court judge and the decision she handed down that she was reversed very rarely. And you're going to hear about her years on the Sentencing Commission, probably, and how her recommendations were part of unanimous recommendations from the commission, and the Republicans approved of those. So I think that's what you'll hear from them. On the other side, as you said, you're going to hear about judicial philosophy. Ted Cruz said he's going to ask about abortion, religious liberties, free speech, gun rights, and crime. He's not going to get an answer to any of those questions.
Well, that's right, and most actually won't, right? I mean, when you start asking about specific issues, the modern Supreme Court nominee is not going to answer them. I realize that was not always the case. But you know what? The other one we got a little bit of a preview on, June, was from Mitch McConnell yesterday. They want to ask her for her feelings on court stacking. Is that something she can answer?
She won't answer that either. In fact, she hasn't answered it in a past hearing, or at least in a past, I'm not sure if it was a hearing that they asked her about it, or at a conference or something.
Not going to go there.
No, because, why they cite Justices Stephen Breyer and the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but they said that once they were on the court, they gave their opinions about court packing, not before they got on the court. And if you remember, do you remember back to Justice Neil Gorsuch? It seems like decades ago, but anyway, back to him, he refused to say whether Brown v. Board of Education, which outlawed segregation, whether that was a good decision or a bad. You don't get many substantive answers that you don't know the answer to
and
already.
They're coached to not answer, right? This is the way it goes. Who's the Republican on the Judiciary Committee most likely to vote for Jackson, or is that not going to happen, June?
Well, I would have said Lindsey Graham, because he's voted for other nominees and because he voted for her before.
He did.
But I was on the show when you mentioned that he came out and tweeted right after she was nominated that it was the far left doing this. And he mentioned today that he wanted to talk about dark money and ask her why these groups are behind her. She's not going to answer that either.
Well, he went there again today, June. I'm glad that you mentioned this. Listen to Lindsey Graham, who, of course, was prepared to vote to confirm someone else on the short list from his state, right? We heard a lot about Judge Childs at that point, and was preferred as well by Congressman Clyburn, which is partly how we got here with the idea of having the first black woman on the court. This is Lindsey Graham earlier today.
Judge Childs would have gotten 60-plus votes. There have been people in my caucus that would have voted for her, even though we knew she'd be a reliable liberal vote, because I and Senator Scott would have stepped up. Now we're facing a choice sponsored by the most radical elements of the Democratic Party when it comes to how to be a judge. They have the most radical view of what a judge should do, and you were their choice.
Imagine sitting there as the nominee, hearing a former chair of the judiciary say if they had picked someone else, would have gotten 60 votes. Is that actually true, June? Does anyone think that was real, the math you just presented?
I don't think 60 votes. They would have got. I think she would have gotten his vote, and perhaps he could have corralled a couple of other senators.
Rick Scotty
but 60
said, yeah.
votes? I mean, I got it, but I thought that was so uncomfortable for her to be sitting there. I mean, she can't respond to what was done and why they picked her. She can't answer those questions. It just seems really out of place, and so all my thoughts of, this is going to be a very subdued hearing went out the window just when he started, which was pretty early on in the hearing.
He was, I think, the third Republican to speak. You're right about that. It definitely set the tone. So are we playing into this, June, or is, sometimes you get telegraphing like this, you show up, it's a snooze fest, or is this going to be bare knuckle tomorrow?
Well, I really can't tell. I would have said it would be bare knuckle, but Josh Hawley already seemed to be a little less, on the offensive when he spoke than he was in his tweets, where he basically said, she was soft on the defendants who are child pornographers or whatever he tweeted when he started that last week. So maybe it'll be a little more subdued. I mean, you can expect the regular questions that we're going to get about her opinions in the Don McGahn case, about, her work as a criminal defense attorney and representation of Guantanamo detainees. Although some Republicans, I think John Kennedy was a Republican who said, I don't hold it against any lawyer, who they represent.
And actually, Lindsey Graham said that as well. So maybe that's not going to be as much of a part of this. But the soft on crime thing is going to be a theme, and it'll be very interesting to see how these members get to it. June, it's great to have you. As always, let's not make this the last time we talk this week, because it's important stuff. Bloomberg Law host June Grasso. If you ever picked a week to listen to June, this would be it. And to June's point, we did hear from Josh Hawley. Interesting. Well, he was trying to clearly be respectful, having been, splashed around the headlines over the weekend. We knew he was going to go in for that line of attack on the child porn cases. But he was respectful as he spoke to the nominee.
Some have asked, why did I raise these questions ahead of the hearing? Why not wait until the hearing and spring them on Judge Jackson, as it were? And my answer to that is very simple. I'm not interested in trapping Judge Jackson. I'm not interested in trying to play gotcha. I'm interested in her answers, because I found in our time together that she was enormously thoughtful, enormously accomplished, and I suspect has a coherent view, an explanation, and a set of way of thinking about this that I look forward to hearing.
From day one, where will we be on day two? We'll reassemble the panel. Rick and Jeannie will come in next to talk about it, but we want to check on the markets on the way right now. Here is an update from Charlie Powell.
Hi, thank you very much, Joe Matthew. Turned out to be a down day today, a day in which Fed Chair Jay Powell poured cold water on tech stocks, signaling that the central bank is prepared to move quickly and aggressively on interest rates. Microsoft and Facebook parent Meta Platforms were among decliners that helped push the NASDAQ 100 index down as much as 1.6%. However, the NASDAQ 100 index ended the day with a loss of just about 0.3%. S&P down 2 points, a drop of less than 0.1%. The Dow down 202, down 0.6%. NASDAQ lower by 55, a drop there of 0.4%. 10-year yield 2.27%. The 2-year yield 2.07%. Gold at $19.36 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude, big story today, volatile move, up by 7.1%, 112.12 on a barrel of crude. Brent up 7.9%, 116.40 for a barrel of Brent. Nike reported quarterly results that beat analyst expectations as the world's largest athletic wear retailer overcame struggles with its supply chain and the China market. After hours, Nike up by about 6%. Recapping, stocks lower, little changed on the S&P, down by 2 points today. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Thank you, Charlie, and thanks for being with us on Bloomberg Sound On. The fastest hour in politics rounds the corner here and reassembles the panel with Bloomberg Politics contributors Jeannie Shanzano and Rick Davis. As I read on the terminal, GOP senators say they will probe Jackson about her work as a public defender and her representation of alleged terrorists held at the U.S. Naval Base at Guantanamo Bay. Gitmo, Republicans seeking to use the hearings to question the president's commitment to law and order. Isn't that what this is all about, Jeannie? Everyone knows, I think, how this ends. Democrats can do this all on their own if they want to confirm Judge Jackson. Kamala Harris can take the motorcade right down Pennsylvania Avenue and shut the whole thing down. But this is creating a case. This is a much longer-term, broader narrative about law and order, about being soft on crime, about defund the police. What do you think?
You know, it is stunning. I was looking at the first woman confirmed, Sandra Day O'Connor, 99-0, and we are looking at the first African-American woman. To your point, she will be confirmed. It'll likely be 51-49. I don't know if Rick thinks, they'll get one Republican. I really doubt it at this point. Both of them equally wonderfully qualified women. It speaks to the times. I mean, starting with Robert Bork, we've seen incredibly contentious Supreme Court hearings. The partisan divide has gotten worse. The polarization has gotten worse. And, of course, we're in an election year where people like Josh Hawley are playing to the cameras. So the litany of descriptions he talked about, her being soft on sex offenders and child predators. And you just mentioned, her representing alleged terrorists. I mean, she sounds like a horrible person, but it's perfect for the commercials if you think about it. And that's where we are. I mean, they're making midterm election commercials at this point, and they're using hearings, which, by the way, the American public deserves to hear from her. It's the last time they have to. She'll serve for life once she's on there, 30, 40 years as long. And we deserve to have a really profoundly important hearing, but we're not going to get it. We're going to get this political back and forth, getting sound bites for commercials, and it's distressing.
It is, but it's also just, that's the game now, right, Rick? I mean, can she get a single Republican yes? On the committee?
On the committee, no. I don't think there's anybody on the committee that's likely to move over to the other side and vote to report her out. And they know they don't have to. She'll still get out, and she's going to get voted on. And I think there's a fatalism within the Republican ranks that they're not really trying to challenge her nomination. They know she's going to pass, and they know she's going to serve. I think this is an opportunity to register, because of her background and her history on the bench, certain, I think, protests against this administration, especially on crime, which is a increasingly important issue, to the American public.
What's the potential for backlash here, Rick, with